What's up guys, Phantom here, back with episode 37, my F1 2019 career mode, as we are going to the Marina Bay Street Circuit for the Singapore Grand Prix for round 15 of season 2.
It's time for us to settle down and the drivers below to get fired up. Once again, welcome to Singapore as we get ready for the green light and the start of what should be a fantastic qualifying session. Now then, Anthony Davidson, you're not getting any younger, but you have been involved in your fair share of qualifying sessions in an illustrious 30-year career. How do you deal with the pressure when you have that one chance to deliver a perfect lap?
It's not so much about dealing with the pressure, it's more about how you approach the risk and just how much of it are you willing to take. You're constantly balancing the car on the edge of grip from braking, cornering and traction, and over the course of a lap it's easy to get that balance wrong, and that's why achieving the perfect lap is almost impossible. As you say, I've been doing this 30 years now and it never gets any easier.
As we start out here in Q2 after easily making it through Q1 as we should, as we are a top team. As we start our flying lap, looking right after the black box, turn in into this right-left section, which is kind of like Istanbul Park's third sector, but it's a little bit more flowing. As we move to the end of the lap, we go through this quick left here onto the straight, and we will finish P3 as our teammate Butler is in P7. As we move on to Q3 here at the very end of this session, we're going to make one and only flying lap here. As you can see, we're in P10 as we have just over 30 seconds to make our one and only flying lap here, as we get the first section correct and not too out of shape. As we move to the end of the lap here, as we do not mount the curb there, and so we are going to only end up in P7, which is still better than our teammate Butler, who since Canada has really been bad. I think he's only scored like 20 points. He's retired a couple of times. It's just not been a very good summer for Butler as we move to the race.
As the sun sets over the South China Sea, the sport that never sleeps is alert and raring to go. Welcome, under the bright lights of the Marina Bay Circuit, to another Singapore Grand Prix. It's a very long, very physical lap, this one, and really there's not much in the way of margin for error. So we have a bit of an endurance race for you tonight. It's a 3.1 mile lap here at the Marina Bay Street Circuit, with 47% taken at full throttle. It's hot, humid and bumpy around the 13 lefts and the 10 rights of mostly slow corners, but we should see speeds of up to 200 miles per hour along the Raffles Boulevard. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Max Verstappen and Faber, a Haas, Norris, Butler and Carlos Sainz, Raikkonen, Albon, Sergio Perez and Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Ricciardo, George Russell and Lance Stroll, Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
As we sit here on the grid in P7 after our qualifying performance, as the 5 lights are on and they're on forever and they're finally out, as we get a pretty good jump on Weber here, as we're automatically to his outside and then trying to go around the outside here as he is holding his line, as we are able to sweep around the outside of turn 3 there and take the position on him as he's trying to fight back into this long turn for right-hander, as that's not the case. But with us having a custom setup on, I think we're running 9 or 10 wing, we are going to be super slow down the long straight here. I think about 4 or 5 miles an hour, as we get a little bunched up here at the end of lap 1 here, as Weber's going to have a run at us, as we're forced to go defensive on him, as we almost ran into Leclerc there. But after that, really nothing happened. It was kind of almost like the real-life Singapore Grand Prix, as we kind of pulled away from Weber a little bit by maybe a second and a half, but as we were a little bit slow into the pit lane there, as he's made up basically all his ground back, as the pit lane's looking a little congested here, as we are going to have 2.5, but we are going to get held by Raikkonen, who is going to come out with, I assume, a nice normal pit stop, but we have been held, which means we are pretty far behind Vettel here as we come out in 16th. But by the end of the lap, we've caught back up to Vettel thanks to Kvyat, who's held him up for the entire lap there, as there are a couple cars as Leclerc and Verstappen are coming out right now as we go wide through turn 1, as the Ferraris kind of touch, as Leclerc's wheel didn't fly off this time, as we're going to get a run on them. But again, we just don't have, we're not slippy enough in this, and there we don't have, we have too high of downforce, as Leclerc, even with no slipstream, Leclerc's pretty much the same speed as us. We're going to have to dive down his inside there and kind of force him out there to even get the position, then cover off, as we really can't get that close to Vettel here, as we're like, what, 2-3 tenths behind him, as we're barely gaining anything on him, like maybe a tenth, as we're gonna have to make a Vettel dive bomb into the left-hander there, which probably wasn't the cleanest move ever, as Verstappen has actually had a mechanical failure in this race and will not finish. As we look here in replay going over the bridge into the hairpin, smoke just comes out the back, as our teammate Butler decides to not go around him, and this shows you the flaw with the AI here, as Raikkonen is just going to nail the back of Verstappen there, as he's lost his wing and will be forced to pit, as on lap 8 here, coming on the 9, Bottas has had the fastest lap, and so have we, as Bottas has basically was the complete train here as he's trying to overtake Hulkenberg. As we said, another fast lap. Bottas is really slow in this race. He's the one that held us all up, as I think Hamilton has a 7 or 8 second lead. He's been really slow this entire race, as we probably caught him, what, by 2 seconds that lap. He's been really slow, with the help of Hulkenberg, who's coming back on Bottas there, as he's going to try to go around the outside, but we're going to try to set up as we kind of hit Bottas there a little bit, as we're going to try to go around the outside. We definitely don't want Hulkenberg getting in the middle of us and making me sit an entire lap, as Russell is going to go into pits finally on the end of lap 11 here, as we really just can't get that close to Bottas here. This is the closest we can really get to him, as we are catching him a little bit, but not even close to what you need to even do what I tried against Vettel earlier. As we move into the middle sector here, we're going to probably get the best run we've ever had through this middle sector here, as we are going to catch up really close to this hairpin. We're going to go for it, as this is really our only shot, as if you look at the bottom, Vettel, even in traffic, is catching us at a rapid around rate. As you look on the lap 14 to 15, not even 2 laps later, Vettel has passed Bottas, who's pretty much given up 3 seconds in a lap and 3/4, as Hamilton will easily win the Singapore Grand Prix. He probably hasn't even looked in his mirror since turn 1, as we will come home to finish second.
Well done, good finish. You stepped up and achieved what we asked. Good job.
Yet another historic win under their belts. Well done to the team at Mercedes. Anthony Davidson, How do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on the track was today: speed. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, Crofty, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes. And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Despite the best efforts of our championship leader, that lead has taken a bit of a knock today. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Today, I think I'll give it to the Haas driver. Look at where they finished compared to where they started. It's not easy to cut through the field like that in Formula One, so it was a great effort.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.